Just take a minute and look into your hand. What do you see? When I look at mine, I see a unique purpose. We have a 1 out of 63 trillion chance that our fingerprint, whether we are living, dead, or alive, is same. And it's not by chance. We are uniquely made. We are uniquely made for a purpose because the purpose of life is to be useful. And our usefulness is to drive transformational change. But the road to finding that purpose is one that is paved with challenges. 43 years ago, I was born in a little village called Jinquin in the northwestern part of Cameroon. I was not born into opportunity like many across the entire African continent today. I grew up facing the brunt of crop failure. And the words we heard earlier in our lives from our mom was famine. And this meant consequences. It meant consequences for us going to school with our stomach aching of hunger. It meant consequences for us having to beg food from our neighbors whose crop has not failed as ours. That was my journey to purpose. It was my moment of epiphany. The moment I started to look at solutions and start to think, how can the problems of crop failure that we saw in our mother's farm, how can they be solved? I then later on understood that what we know today as climate change, which is manifesting itself in droughts, as we're speaking today, 2 million Kenyans are facing drought, in cyclones and floods, and hurricanes, you name it. And these are manifestations of the changing climate. Just in 2020, the world lose up to about 210 billion as a result of climate disasters events. But the science is unequivocally clear on this. In August 2021, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a report which has been described as a good rate for humanity. And this report showed that we have only 20 years to go above 1.5 degrees. And the United Nations Environment Programme Emissions Gap Report, which was released just last week, showed that if all the plans that the entire world have put in place are actually just to be implemented as they are, we will go up to 2.7 degrees by the end of the century. But this is happening at a time when the continent Africa is warming twice as fast as the rest of the world. And this is bad news for a continent where our mothers, our brothers and sisters go to bed hungry. 257 million of them. Where we have 60 million malnourished children every year in the continent. Where we have 12 million youth getting into the labor market each and every year, disenfranchised because they cannot find the jobs. And on top of this, the COVID-19 pandemic have only added to this precarious equation. And so what do we need to do? We need a new perspective. We need a new perspective which is summed up in this African proverb that every adversity carries with it a seed of equal or greater benefit. Yes, in the turmoil of climate change, there are seeds of opportunities. And these seeds of opportunities can be tapped through what we call climatepreneurship. Yet it's about us using what we have and moving away from complaining and blaming each and everyone, but finding in it to retool our skill, regardless of where we come from, regardless of what age or what we study in school, to just do something to help that mother in the community. It's about co-creation of value for the community as we help mothers put more money in their pockets and food on the table. But to actualize this climatepreneurship across Africa, we need what I call foundational attributes. Like a lion, we need to understand our context. And the context here, I'm talking about the socio-economic context of Africa. We have a continent where the informal sector that contributes 80% of the jobs in the entire African continent today are the most vulnerable to climate change. And we must be able to leverage and ensure that whatever thing we do, we lift them from the bottom of the pyramid. In addition to having the mindset of a lion, what we need to do is to have the eye of an eagle that can see 3 kilometers away, what I call an eye for solutions. 56% of emissions in the African continent today are land-based, coming as a result of deforestation for agricultural land and the harvest of charcoal. But we're in a continent where each and every year, 700,000 Africans die as a result of indoor pollution. 700,000 Africans are not just a statistic. They are dying because of indoor pollution because they depend on charcoal. But turning agricultural waste, simple agricultural waste, where each and every one of us can retool our skill, can be able to reduce this. We need the discipline of an ox. Like an ox can plow, the discipline, the consistency, the persistency. We need this to be able to drive entrepreneurship and above all, the wisdom. that can then be able to see challenges in adversity. And I will leave you with 3 fundamental principles on how we can be able to drive climatepreneurship in the African continent today. The first is climate action is an investment opportunity. We must graduate from projecting liability anytime we are faced with a challenge. Yes, we know, but Africa is also a leader. 98% of the entire African continent have ratified the Paris Climate Change Agreement. In every country, starting here in Kenya, you ratify the Paris Climate Change Agreement. You have the Climate Change Act of 2016. And across the entire continent, Africa is a leader. We also have physical policies. If you look at Kenya, the 2021 finance bill have physical incentives, taking off 20% VAT on briquettes, on burgers. If we tap into this, we can create climatepreneurship enterprises in the country and even across the continent. And the second part, Africa's youth are Africa's powerhouse. We cannot ignore them. We cannot make them the footnote always. We have to make Africa youth the head note. Because without them, we cannot be able to drive transformational change. We've developed an incubation space called innovative volunteerism that has become not just a sing-song across the entire continent, but a climate action movement where we're seeing youth being inspired to retool their skill, to refine their skill, to adapt their skill, to turn challenges into opportunities. We are guiding them and inspiring them to turn their passions into profits. And what we are seeing starting right here in Kenya, young people are turning agricultural waste into briquettes that are replacing charcoal to Uganda, to Ghana, to Nigeria, to DRC, to Cameroon, and across the entire African continent. We are seeing a new perspective, a perspective where young people are moving away from complaining, but actually becoming the center stage for solutions. We are also seeing them retooling their skills and fabricating solar dryers that are decentralized to our mothers in communities just to dry their rice, just to dry their veggies, just to dry their beans. And they are tapping into a $48 billion US, which is as a result of post-harvest losses across the continent. And with all this, we need the last point, passion. Passion is the new currency of now. You cannot do anything without passion. Through anything on passionless people, through money, and nothing will change. It therefore means that we must be able to cultivate that passion, and that needs a new mindset change. It's a mindset change from leveraging on what we have so that we can apply emergency brakes on the complaining and the blame game that sometimes we get embroiled in. We need a new mindset change to actually usher ourselves into what I call righteous anger, but not righteous anger to complain, but righteous anger to act, because the only antidote to despair is action. The only antidote to frustration is action. With actions, we can create a groundswell of hope that can usher millions into opportunities. There comes a time in any generation where they face a challenge. But anytime they face that challenge, they've always rolled up their sleeves to face it head on and devise a solution. Climate change is the challenge of our time. And we have the opportunity to turn it into climatepreneurship enterprises across the continent. That is the only way we can supercharge and turbocharge the bottom of the pyramid and drive transformational development. Let's start today. Thank you.